A chaotic energy storm is about to unfold on our planet in just a few days due to a convergence of factors. And this is going to take most people completely by surprise. We're really looking at April 17th to 23rd. Most specifically, though, this could go and extend all the way to the end of the month. And the most critical dates for this are April 19th and April 20th. Now, what is happening? Well, we have a bunch of space weather coming in. There's a very large coronal hole currently on the Earth facing side of the Sun. We're going to be in that high-speed stream in just a couple days. Right now, Earth's magnetic field is super quiet. It's about to become very volatile and noisy. We also have a very significant planetary alignment happening during this time frame involving Earth, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune. There's other planetary alignments as well. We have an Earth, Venus, Uranus alignment, a Venus, Saturn, Neptune alignment, a Mercury, Sun, Jupiter alignment. So all that converging together simultaneously speaks to the possibility of there being enhanced space weather and also enhanced earthquake activity here on Earth. These sort of large coronal holes that we see on the Sun are also well linked to high magnitude earthquake activity. In fact, last time we saw this coronal hole on the Sun, we experienced a global seismic burst, primarily characterized by a magnitude 7.5, magnitude 7.3, and magnitude 7.4 earthquake sequence that occurred just over the span of about a week in the Southwest Pacific. So, we could very well have another global seismic burst coming in. But there is a wild card to all this. In fact, there's two wild cards to all this. The first one here is Mars. We have some really interesting space weather that has been sent off to Mars. It is a critical piece of this planetary alignment, and I think we're going to see some very interesting plasma and/or electromagnetic effects unfold as a result of this that could shake things up even more. The second wild card is that we have a comet flying into the solar system for its perihelion on April 19th. This is comet C2025 R3 Pan-STARRS. It'll be exactly in between the Sun and the Earth, right around the orbit of Mercury, around the 25th to 26th of April. So just in general, as you can see, there is a lot that's happening in our space environment right now, and that is very likely to translate into real-world activities and geological events unfolding here on Earth in just the next few days. So we're going to cover all that and much more in today's video. Let's jump right into it. Let's start off with our planetary alignment. And we're going to come back to this image here so I can explain this in a little bit more detail and my hypothesis of some of the energetic factors that are unfolding, okay? But this is 100% the alignment that the planets will be, and my hypothesis is a hypothesis. We see Earth right there, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune. These four very specifically in a nice alignment. Basically a perfect line on the 18th, 19th, 20th of April. We're already in this alignment, but it goes exact around the 19th of April and the 20th of April. And we have other alignments too. So we have an Earth, Venus, Uranus alignment. It's not exact, but it's pretty close. That geocentric conjunction comes later on in April. I think it's the 28th of April. We have a Mercury-Sun-Jupiter alignment. Jupiter not imaged here in this graphic, but that is pretty precise around the 17th of April, I believe. And then we also have a Venus, Saturn, Neptune alignment right in this time frame. So, a lot of planetary alignments unfolding. And just a teaser as to something I'm going to talk about later. You'll notice that in this alignment here, Earth, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, these are the planets in our solar system that all have the same tilt angle approximately. Earth 23.4 degrees, Mars 25.2 degrees, Saturn 26.7 degrees, Neptune 28.3 degrees. So all the other planets have completely different spin angles. Venus actually spins backwards. She's the only one that does that retrograde spin. All the other planets spin normal direction. But these four planets are the ones that have their tilt angle for their spin axis within 5 degrees of each other. So I think that's really important. We'll talk about that more later. Now, arguably in some aspect, the most important thing that's occurring coming up is this giant coronal hole. It'll be hitting Earth with its high-speed stream of solar wind. This carries its own magnetic field with it. That is why there is this deficiency in the solar corona, the outermost atmosphere of the Sun to begin with. This magnetic field extends deep out into space, effectively vacuums up all the plasma, super high temperature, millions of degrees Kelvin, into this high stream, and shoots it out into space. So, we are left with a deficiency in plasma. We see that here with this dark spot. There's a lot happening though, beyond just this coronal hole high-speed stream. This is a big one. Last time we saw this one specifically. As I mentioned in February, we had that global seismic burst. We've seen this time and time again, where we get big increases in global seismicity as a result of these coronal holes being Earth-facing to geo-effective. So effectively this quadrant of the Sun right there. That's really when these things pop off. That's going to be there very soon. It's wide, meaning that we'll be in that high-speed stream for a while. It's cutting through the solar equator, meaning it will hit Earth with its high-speed stream. As a default, this is going to basically cause there to be a shock wave to hit Earth. This is a high-density wall plasma traveling at the front of this high-speed stream. And then we'll get that compression of the magnetic field as a result of the high-speed solar wind. And then that's going to overall trigger geomagnetic volatility on the planet. So I'd say there's probably a G2 geomagnetic storm coming in as a result of this. We could even see G3 conditions, because we are in April, and this is when the Russell-McLaren effect is in play, but I'd skew a little bit more towards G2. The fact, though, that we have this planetary alignment, though, is kind of like a +1 factor for all this. So keep that in mind. You'll see more happening here, though. You will notice something really interesting happen at the end, but there's a lot to cover. You'll see some plasma filaments blasting off around the Sun. There's been a lot of activity. We've had 2 blasts off to Mars in the past couple days. We'll talk about that next. You'll see this sunspot group right here starting to get very active. And so, while it's not showing up as clear spikes in the X-ray flux at this moment in time, it is showing a lot of activity just like you see before. You get a big solar flare, and then coronal mass ejection, the whole explosion. Shebang, there we go. So I would not be surprised if we get a pretty significant solar flare from the sunspot group in the next few days, and it could happen during that Earth direct zone right here, when this is in the geoeffective position. That's like that perfect 1-2 punch, and that could very well launch out a significant coronal mass ejection, following up behind this high-speed stream to cause there to be even more geomagnetic volatility on our planet, charge up the global electric circuit. All this stuff you will see here, a plasma filament launch off from the Sun. It shows up better in different views, but you will see it launch off. And then you'll see this canyon of fire. See that movement, that flow that is showing that also launched off. That doesn't appear to be super Earth direct, but maybe we get hit just a little bit by that. And it also demonstrates something really brilliantly, which is that these flux ropes, these magnetic tubes that exist on the Sun, these filaments, right? They are a condensation of plasma. There's actually an elemental differentiation that occurs within them, based off of the ionization potential of these different elements. So they cluster in these shells, in these filaments. That's the theoretical framework that we have. That's the best that I've at least heard of. When these launch off, they go off into space, but then you'll see we get this coronal hole to expand afterwards, because these flux ropes and these tubes can act as ion pumps. So, it starts to actually vacuum material up from the corona. And as a result, we get this coronal hole to expand at the last second there as a result of that plasma filament blasting off into space. Watch it again very closely. We see that coronal hole right there beautifully start to expand and move around the surface of the Sun. So this thing is still growing at this moment in time. We have just a weak coronal hole here, but very large in the southern hemisphere. So we have just a lot of the Earth-facing side of the Sun right now, dominated by coronal holes, which are well linked to high-magnitude earthquake activity, global seismic burst, and more. That is the first thing. This sunspot there also being pretty significant. But there's more than just that. Let's look at what just happened on the Sun. We will see that here with our 304 ancient view for the past 24 hours. And you will notice a really significant coronal mass ejection launch off here. We also see some interesting plasma stuff down there. But you'll see this one go off like this. So this is going to happen any moment now. We'll see this large coronal mass ejection expand off. And this will be in the direction of Mars. So that's quite significant. There it is right there. See that? That's a big coronal mass ejection. It's not exactly from the limb. It's also not exactly opposite the Earth. Mars is right now roughly at that 45-degree angle in between those two. And as you can see, that's going off that direction. So we have a coronal mass ejection going to Mars, and that impact is expected on the 19th around 2:30 a.m. Universal Time. There is already a coronal mass ejection that launched to Mars about 18 hours ago. I can show you that one right here. So here we see the big explosion on the Sun's far side from the 13th that launched out towards Mars as well. So now we have one going to the north of the ecliptic plane, but still along it. This one going to the south of the ecliptic plane beforehand. Both of these off to the red planet. That is quite significant. And we can see the most recent one again here. I have it very nicely shown there going out. So, the expected impact to Mars for that is on the 17th at 1800 Universal Time, and then on the 19th at around 2:30 a.m. Universal Time. Let's check out the NASA space weather models, because that gives us a further clue into some really interesting space weather dynamics, and how this space weather impacting Mars could trigger this planetary alignment in a very unique way. Here we see the NASA space weather model for this far side event that occurred right here on the 13th. And we see this coronal mass ejection go out. This is the planet Mars. We see Earth right there. A whole bunch of other things that they track. You can see it all up there. But this is going off to Mars. We see it very clearly going there. An estimated impact again, 1800 Universal Time. So that is hitting. We see the other space weather model from NOAA for the second far side eruption. Again, this one there bit more to the north. Not as large, I would say, but still quite significant as we see basically perfect direct shot to the red planet. So we have two big interplanetary coronal mass ejections that will be sweeping by Mars back to back, right as this planetary alignment that involves Mars goes exact effectively. Well, let's talk a little bit more about why that's important. Here we see a screenshot from that first model. And that second coronal mass ejection, though it's not pictured here, would be following up right behind. We're not going to be speaking about electromagnetism, because while these planetary alignments do involve gravity, and that's a very important component, we can extend beyond just a gravity only, understanding to electromagnetic reality as well. And that's the dominant force in the universe, as far as we know, much stronger than gravity is here. We see a co-rotating interaction region right there. So basically this is plasma density here. We see another co-rotating interaction region, plasma density. You see that overall the solar wind has a structure to it. It's not homogeneous. You have low density, high density, low density, high density. And the magnetic field, there's this clear differentiation between different zones within the solar wind that primarily delineated by these co-rotating interaction regions. Well, here we have Mars, and we have this one going out like this co-rotating interaction region. This one as well, this CIR, we have this coronal mass ejection right there, connecting the two together. So you have this now higher density structure extending deep out into space to the red planet that connects directly back to the sun. That's really interesting. It basically shows that there can be a flow of energy through this. When we're talking about plasma, when we're talking about space weather, all this stuff, fundamentally we're talking about circuits. And what we see here is a very nice example of an interplanetary plasma circuit. And what's so interesting about circuits is that they have this electric current that runs through them, and they can also release explosively at times. That's what we see with a big solar flare, is that there's a little circuit close to the sun that gets disrupted that causes this big release of energy. It's all in there latently, and then it just explodes. So we have this circuit, this flow of energy, and this flow of energy is going to be passing through the red planet. Now in space you don't have that much resistance. If it's all, if this plasma feature, for example, is going out, there's nothing really in the way. Well, Mars is a big planet, and it doesn't really have much of an atmosphere. It's not really conductive. Earth has an ionosphere, so it's conductive. Venus has a really strong, rich electric ionosphere. So it can take part in all these things. Mars is just kind of like a dead red rock in the way, like a big resistor. Well, how do you think that's going to affect the circuit? That's the big unknown, but it's going to disrupt that circuit. The question also is, how significant is that disruption? So let's go back to our alignment here, and let's talk a little bit more about just some ideas that I have. Okay, because we already see with the big coronal holes an increase in high magnitude earthquake activity on Earth most of the time. Not every time. Most of the time you can be like 80% assured reasonably that you're going to get some clustering of high magnitude seismic events around the transit of a very large transquatorial coronal hole, especially if it's negative polarity, like the one that we have. While we have this alignment, we also see a clustering of seismic events when we get multiple planetary alignments to converge. Not just one or two, but like 3, 4, 5, which is what we're seeing here. We have multiple planetary alignments. This is the main one though. They all share that tilt axis. Well, we know that if this superprominence effectively, or we can also call it this interplanetary coronal mass ejection, it's passing through Mars. It's literally like a capacitor applying an electric field through the planet. The entire region of space that Mars will be in will have this new electric field applied to it as a result of this passage of plasma through space. Mars has its own geology and minerals and all this. And as we know here on our planet Earth, there's a lot of plasma actually on our planet in our atmosphere. There's a lot of plasma in the surface. For example, earthquake lights. When there's a big earthquake on land, we see plasma shoot out of the surface, go up to the ionosphere, and just beam off into space or wherever. We know very little about it, but we know that Earth has a lot of plasma. The entire universe is mostly plasma. 99. 9% plasma. So you have to think about it from a plasma perspective for this to really make sense. But you have this electric field applied to Mars that is then going to trigger some degree of a reverse piezoelectric effect. Because when you apply electric field to minerals that have a crystal structure that generates mechanical stress and strain. The opposite is the piezoelectric effect, which is where you apply stress to a crystal, and then you get a electric current, basically a little bit to come out from that crystal. And a classic example is a quartz crystal. You put some pressure on that, and it'll generate an electric signal. The reverse pole electric effect is the opposite of that. We're getting this electric field to be applied to the entire planet of Mars. So you're going to get this in this stress applied to the planet. We could be looking at Marsquakes to occur during this alignment. I wouldn't be surprised. But as a result of that, you have, just Mars itself, more active, more energized. You have potentially earthquake activity on Mars. You also start to stimulate the plasma within the planet, because there's plasma everywhere, and it can move a lot more than people think. Again, atoms like you touch something, right? And you feel like you're hitting a solid wall. But in reality, it's just, you have this repulsion between atoms. It's mostly empty space. So plasma can easily move through things. That's exactly why during a high magnitude earthquake, sometimes on land we see the plasma, the earthquake lights just go straight up, right? It's not like the surface is any and the ground is any impediment to them. It just moves straight through it and beams up to where it needs to go. So we're also going to see plasma start to move, likely as a result across Mars. The question is, how significant is this plasma movement? We don't have that many sensors to measure stuff, etc. This is kind of the theoretical field, and I can't say any of this stuff definitively. Alright? The other thing that you will learn is that when you have plasma reaching out, and it's connected to, let's say here, the sun, right? You're going to start to get plasma infall to Mars because it does have gravity and plasma does have mass. That infall will then reionize or further ionize the plasma. When that happens, it can then start to allow for a transfer of angular momentum. Okay, this is where this alignment really becomes key because Mars is spinning, Earth is spinning, Saturn's spinning, Neptune are spinning all effectively at the same angle, different period times. Mars and Earth are fairly similar. Saturn's fast, Neptune's fairly fast. If you're able to transfer angular momentum, perhaps you're also able to affect this resonance system because these planets clearly have a resonance with their spin and tilt axis. And they are all lining up in the sky, really precisely around the 19th, just as a comet performs its perihelion right about here in the solar system. Again, that's R3 Panars. That's another wild card. And you'll have this connection between Mars and the Sun, and not just one of these interplanetary coronal mass ejections, or you can call it superprominence, but with two of them now that we've seen. So there's a longer time window now for this effect to take place, and the Sun has a lot of angular momentum it can share. Maybe it causes Mars to speed up a little bit. Maybe it pulls some angular momentum from Mars. We just know that when you have plasma brought into a state of partial coarctation, due to the magnetic field dynamics, that can then cause there to be a transfer of angular momentum. And this is some of the ideas of the formation of the solar system, is that you had this high angular momentum central body, the proto-sun, and then as you had plasma cooling around the periphery, is brought into rotation around it. And that helped transfer angular momentum from the central proto-sun out to the plants. And that's how they started spinning so quickly. Okay? So to what degree that this occurs now, is an unknown. But this is all established physics. So I just see here a resonant system with Saturn, Mars, Earth, Neptune, all having very similar properties, them being in alignment almost like 4 tuning forks of the same note. And we're going to have Mars here be hit by a pretty significant hammer, which is the Sun, and it's going to start ringing. And we could see maybe some other effects propagate outwards. Now, Earth is, I would say, in the crosshairs the most for a potential effect of this because it's under these other alignments as well. This Earth, Venus, Uranus alignment is quite significant. So, that is there. It's kind of the focus point of this overall planetary kind of V-shaped alignment that we're seeing there. That is kind of the idea that I have. We'll just have to wait and see. But now that we've had 2 of these plasma storms sent off to Mars, I think there's something here. I really do. I mean, just regardless with the planetary alignment, the coronal holes, the comet, I'm already looking at the next few days and going all the way to end of April very, very closely. I think almost certainly we're going to have some sort of big event occur. But now with this additional detail added on top, then I'm really thinking, okay, this is going to be significant. And with all this focus on Mars, it would be remiss of me not to mention the archetypal characteristics of Mars, which we have built up an understanding of over thousands of years. Mars is the planet of war, aggression, its raw kinetic power and action. It's a spark that leaps the gap. It is a force that severs an energy that pushes. It will rip apart, sever, break. It will trigger a change. A fantastic example of this was when we had a Mars, Earth, Saturn, Neptune planetary alignment in the middle of last year, 2025. We had the strongest earthquake in 14 years, the magnitude 8.8 megaquake off the coast of Kamaka. So you see how these Mars alignments are really powerful, how they can relate to geophysical and geologic activity here on Earth. And we have a similar alignment occurring right now. But this time, we have Mars being supercharged by 2 separate interplanetary coronal mass ejections. So I wanted to share that all with you. And we can talk more about circuits here. We see here some filamentary currents coming off the Sun like this. We also see here this sort of circuit coming off the Sun. This is the magnetic field. Here we see the electric field. So imagine that prominence coming out Mars sitting right in the middle. It's going to disrupt the flow of electric current, right? It's disrupting the flow of electric current, moving through these established filamentary currents, and they extend way out from the Sun and meet up, but they still do connect to the Sun fundamentally. So we have 2 different plasma circuits being dropped over Mars as a result of these 2 coronal mass ejections that were launched to Mars just over the past 36 to 48 hours. And these fundamentally will be connecting the red planet to the Sun because of how those currents extend outwards, but still connect back to the Sun. Mars will act as some sort of disruptor to the flow of current through those interplanetary coronal mass ejections, these superprominences, whatever you want to call them. And we could see some very interesting effects from that. I don't exactly know how it's going to manifest, whether it's going to be significant or not, but I think something's going to happen there. Keep in mind, because of this large coronal hole on the Sun, going geo-effective around the 17th will be in that for at least a couple days because of its width. Earth will also be connected to the Sun directly as a result. So we have this Earth, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Neptune, planetary alignment, creating a vector of energy and resonance through the solar system. So that's connecting Earth and Mars together. but we'll also have the Sun acting as a central agent of connection at the same time as a result of electromagnetic and plasma processes. So yeah, I think things are really going to be quite spectacular in the next few days. This comet C2025 R3 Pinar is coming in for perihelion closest Sun about 0.5 astronomical units. That's also presenting itself very much as a trigger for all of this. It then has that perfect Sun-Comet-Earth alignment on the 25th, 26th, and we could see some big solar flare activity from this sunspot, which is just now starting to really wake up in the past 24 hours as this is effective. So a lot of this is probabilities potentials. We know that this is going to hit us. We know the alignment is going to happen. We know the comet's going for perihelion, but for example, will that actually flare or not? That's a good question. How significant is this plasma circuit being dropped over Mars, and what's the exact effect of that? That's an open question. But definitely a lot is happening right now. Just by the way, I don't think this is the end of the world. I think everything will be fine, but it's good to be aware and prepared. So that's really the message. And personally, I seek to better understand what's happening. And so by studying this and looking at it often, frequently daily, right? Presenting these videos daily, that's one of the best ways to do that. So, that's my whole ethos and my mission here at the channel. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Smash that like button to help the channel grow. Get this video out to more people. Really appreciate that. And thank you all so much for watching. I'm wishing each and every single one of you well. Have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.